Good evening. So much to talk about right here on today's show. First up, of course, we'll have to address Dominic Thiem, the Dominator. Is he ready to dominate the French Open? Plus, he's going to be on the show joining us in just a moment, so make sure you stick around for that. Also, Greg Rusedski, former player and tennis pundit now, thinks that Rafa's dominance on clay may be over. We'll talk about that. Andy Murray has new teeth. We'll take a look at him, and we'll compare him to the old ones. And Justin Gimelstob has resigned over the weekend. So much news on the Gimelstob. Obviously, his court case wrapped up, and now, latest news breaking today, he has resigned from the ATP board. We'll talk a little bit about that. Gilles Muller, tennis player, retired last year. Now, the latest commentator on Tennis TV, thinks that Djokovic might be in for another slump like what we saw in 2016 after he won the French Open. We'll talk about that. Why Lindell isn't traveling with Sasha Zverev. Is it because he's going to quit being his coach? What gen is Dominic Thiem? A lot of people commented before that he's not part of the lost gen. Well, he sure ain't part of the next gen. We'll talk about that. And we'll wrap up today's show with another fabulous Fonini headline. All that, and you should be happy because that is quite a lot on today's Coffee Break Tennis. So, Dominic Thiem. He wins Barcelona. He takes down next-gen threat Danny Medvedev. But what we'll all remember from last week, is the way he beat Rafa without dropping serve, including coming back from down love 40 when he served for the match at 5-4 in the second, and beat Rafa. Now, 4 years in a row. This is 4 years in a row where he has beat Rafa on clay somewhere in the world. He beat him in straight sets this time, and a lot of questions about Joker, a lot of questions about Rafa now, of course, and a lot of people starting to think that Dominic Thiem is going to win the French Open maybe, or at least that he's the third favorite, which honestly, I have trouble putting Djokovic ahead of him right now. So before we welcome Dominic Thiem to the show, first let's talk about a couple things. First off, we got to see Stefanos Tsitsipas play in Estoril in Portugal, and we got to see Alexander Sasha Zverev play in München. So let me just say a couple things about them first off. Those two, Medvedev and Dominic Thiem, outside of your big three, those are the big names on clay. Stefanos likes playing on the clay, and Alexander Sasha Zverev said that he was the third best player in the world on clay after Thiem. That's what he said. After Thiem, and for the past few years, he's saying. For the past 2 years, I believe he said. Other than Nadal and Thiem, he's the best in the world. Well, he looked really good. He looked better than he's looked in a long time. Just take a look at this clip of him hitting his backhand on the run. Tremendous defense he's playing with the very powerful ground strokes.
Oh, what a beauty. What a beauty.
Stefanos Tsitsipas, he won today over Andreozzi, Italian guy, likes playing on clay. Just like Juan Ignacio Londero, who Zverev beat, he likes playing on clay too. These are good wins for these guys. And it was very windy. If you saw, oh man, look at this. If you saw Monfils get aced by the wind in Riley Opelka, but this is second serve, and the wind carried it away. It's pretty hilarious.
That was incredible. The wind blew that ball away from Gael Monfils. Massive gust of wind.
So Stefanos Tsitsipas came through a tough match with those kind of windy conditions and is looking pretty good to me, especially the way he dealt with break points and troubling times. He's able to hang tough and get the win. But those guys, as good as they look today, don't look nearly as good as Dominic Thiem. In fact, on clay, other than Fabio Fognini, and Fabio Fognini, the way he did it, doesn't look like you could count on him to play that great all the time. Dominic Thiem, even though I've called him one-dimensional, he looks like he can do everything. Some of the drop shots he hit against Rafa Nadal were incredible. And I just recently said that Dominic Thiem doesn't look so good with the drop shot. In Monte Carlo, we saw him hit some kind of sloppy, not very good drop shots that he had to pay for against Rafa, and he did it at crucial moments. He did it down break points. He's playing the great, heavy firepower from behind the baseline, but he's also stepping up more than he used to, getting close to the baseline and taking advantage of court positioning as well. Another thing about Dominic Thiem is he's serving well. He managed to find the Rafa backhand constantly with his serve. He did like Fabio Fognini, pinned Rafa in that backhand corner with the one-handed backhand up the line, and slice backhands. Very good slice backhands, and of course the drop shots. He even had one off the forehand wing that looked incredible. I gave him a hard time in the past because he would try to do other things and look really bad at it and fail sometimes. And I said he's one-dimensional. He can't play the other ways. But he's starting to look like all that trying it and it not working out over time. That's what you got to do to get good at it. You got to keep trying to do things a little different. And it's starting to look like he's figured everything out and can bring it together. Now, I don't know if he'll be able to keep this up. Right now, everyone thinks Dominic Thiem has a shot at the French Open. If he has a really bad Madrid, a really bad Rome, then people might sour on him pretty fast. You know how it is on tour. But hey, let's get the man himself on the show. I'm going to put my Apple ears in so I can hear Dominic Thiem. And we're going to look at some of the highlights from his match with Rafa and hear what the man aus Österreich has to say about it himself. All right, so I got the Coffee Break Tennis MacBook here. Get the highlights queued up for Dominic. First off, Dominic Thiem, welcome to the show. And I just want to say I'm sorry for all those times I called you a one-dimensional player because you look like the king of the drop shot. I mean, you had so much variety. You looked incredible in that win over Rafa Nadal.
Sure, Mats. Well,
Matt.
I could sense how far back I push Rafa with meinem großen Vorhand.
Mm-hmm.
And to quote that little girly Mädchen from YouTube's, Rebecca Schwartz, who actually inspired me to start my own YouTube's channel, ich denke in mein Kopf, this is my moment. Und I hit the dropper.
Let's take...
Und it inspired me like that little girly Mädchen to
Rebecca
see
Black.
what I'm
She's
capable of on
great
the tennis
song.
court.
This is my moment. So there you go. Rafa's way back. And there's the dropper.
And look at his face.
Yeah.
Mats, can you put it back? Play it back in a langsam motions.
Sure. Well, yeah, we can put Rafa back in slow motion. Look, you're right, Dominic. Rafa looks very angry. Let's put that on the screen.
Yeah, he's sehr pissed right there.
Yeah, he's very upset. You're right, Dominic. Another thing, a tremendous serving. You did everything great in the match. One thing I was impressed by was you were able to find Rafa's backhand a lot, especially in the deuce court. You were really good at getting to Rafa's backhand, serving out wide. And what do you think about that?
Yeah, Mats. Well, I made a huge discovery. Maybe true that Rafa have advantages serving wide to the backhand, but I realize I can hit a slicey serve wide in the deuce. I can do it back to him in the deuce to his backhand. And does he like his own medicine?
Well, let's take a look at the clip.
Ich denke nicht.
Yeah, got him wide there and a big forehand up the line. I'm really impressed by how big the forehand has been. Dominic's been really working well for you lately. The backhand was great. The variety, the drop shots we already talked about, the slice backhand. I mean, you really showed a lot of variety. Not one-dimensional at all.
Danke, Mats. You're so sweet. You're like your little kitty cat. The cats are Mr. Goat. You and Mr. Goat are so sweet.
Let's take a look at another one here. This is just showing the sheer power of your massive forehand. And even with the short ball up there, maybe in the past you wouldn't have been so good putting it away, but you handled it quite well.
Mats, my super forehand, I've been practicing it very much. Mehr Praxis, mehr Perfection. That's my motto. And the motto of my trainer.
That's definitely a good motto. Let's take a look at some of the backhand up the line stuff where you pinned Rafa in that corner like Fabio. I mean, you got Rafa so wide over there, we couldn't even see him on the screen.
Why don't you look at the next one?
And draw... Oh, yeah, exactly. The next point is the even bigger backhand. Let's cue that up. So we're in this backhand up the line rally.
Oh, it's magnificent. You hear that? Magnificent. They love it.
They want some more of it. It's very good stuff, Dominic.
Matt, can I tell you something?
Sure, go ahead.
Can I tell you a little secret?
Yes.
When Rafa gets me down at love 40, and I serve for the match.
Yeah, at the end of the match.
I was very scared. I was scared, Matt. Like your Katze, like little Mr. Good. You ever see little Katze, Mr. Goat, get scared? Maybe scared of his shadow. Maybe see himself in the mirror. See his reflection. Think there's another kitty cat that tried to take his place. Maybe he get a little scared.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been scared.
Matt, I feel the fear too. But when I hit a big forehand, I hit a bigger backhand like Superstar.
Like who?
Yeah, I hit the backhand like Superstar. I hit a big forehand. And all of a sudden, I feel the confidence and I start to believe.
Like, well, let's take, like Stan Wawrinka. Let's take a look at the Super Stan backhand. This is break points, 15-40. You'd already saved one at love 40. And look at that backhand there. And before you say anything else, Dominic, let's take a look at this. I love how you handled the next break point. Hit an ace. They didn't know if it was in. Turned out it was in, and you get back to deuce from down love 40. I mean, what is that like to be down love 40 serving for the match against Rafa, the king of clay?
Yeah, Matt, I have a lot of respect for Rafa. So much respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly think he is the king of clay. He is the favorite at the French Opens.
Definitely. Still the favorite, for sure.
But if I say one more thing on your channel, which is a very good YouTube channel, I watch it all the time.
Thank you.
I'll quote that little girl he mentioned one more time. Matt, 2019. This is my moment.
It's a great song. Well, Dominic, thank you. And I guess I should say auf Wiedersehen.
Anytime, Matt. Auf Wiedersehen. Bis bald. Tschüss.
Well, there you go, folks. Thank you for Dominic Thiem calling into the show. I got the stats here on the screen. Let's take a look at those stats really quick, and I'll take these ears out. That was amazing. So much thanks to Dominic Thiem for calling into the show and giving us his thoughts on the match, on those highlights. Anyways, as you can see here, Dominic Thiem did a pretty awesome job. 31 winners on 23 unforced errors. Compare that to Rafa's. And like I said, Dominic, so much variety. Looked really good coming to the net. Came to the net more than Rafa in this match and won at the net more than Rafa. 0 double faults with 5 aces. And again, compare that to Rafa, 1 ace, 5 double faults. I mean, Rafa's definitely feeling the pressure and some really healthy win percentages. How about Dominic Thiem winning 69% on second serve? I mean, this is one of the things Rafa's known for, is taking advantage of second serves. And like I said, Dominic constantly found the backhand with the serve. He really he made a lot of us believers. So, again, thanks to Dominic Thiem. And we'll see what he does in Madrid. So, and next up, we got to talk about Greg Rusedski. Put this on the screen. Now, Greg Rusedski, he didn't actually say this. He posed it. See, we get articles like this on the internet. He poses the question on Twitter. He doesn't actually answer it. He says, "Is it over?" So, I shall be so bold, host of the fastest growing tennis talk show in the world, Coffee Break Tennis, I shall be so bold as to say, no, I don't think quite yet the Rafa dominance is over. Now, if you're asking, is Rafa going to win everything on clay for years to come? I don't even think we can say no to that yet, because he could win in Madrid, he could win in Rome. I don't know if I or many people believe that he will at this point, but I'm not going to say he's going to be out at the French Open. And I'll ask you one question before we move on. If this match with Dominic Thiem, and we just heard from the man Dominic Thiem himself, the Dominator, if this was best out of 5, Thiem's up 2 sets to love after being down love 40 when he served for the second set. Rafa challenged. Rafa knew that he had his chances. Do you think Rafa doesn't at least win the third set? Do you think Dominic Thiem could keep playing that great? Do you think those drop shots keep landing as well as he hit them? I don't know for sure. And until we see it happen at the French, I don't think we can say that the Rafa dominance over clay on clay is over. Just for that reason alone. Let's see Dominic Thiem. Let's see anybody do it at the French Open in best of 5 sets. I'm not sure that Dominic Thiem would have not won. I'll give Thiem the credit there, but again, until I see it at the French, I'm not counting Rafa out yet. And even though Rafa did play pretty well in that team match, he brought it harder in that second set, and you really felt like Rafa could get there. I still think Rafa can play even better. I thought that he was there. I thought he was close enough to where he would be able to win over Thiem. And we got to give credit to Thiem for being amazing, but we can't expect Rafa to not play better. Rafa will probably bring something better especially by the time late at the French Open when he faces someone really good like Dominic Thiem. hard to count Rafa out and hard to say that he's not going to play even better than that. Let's see if Dominic can play as good as he did in Barcelona at the French Open. Sir Andy Murray. Got a new hip. Got some new teeth. Take a look. These are the new teeth. These are the old teeth. Comment below. Which teeth do you like better? Does Andy Murray's old teeth give him more character? Or does his new teeth make him look like a handsome supermodel man? You choose. You comment below. What else do we got here? Oh, man. We got to do this Gimelstob. By the way, I took the time to make the definitive list of tennis generations. We will put it on the screen later and talk about it. Dominic Thiem, no matter how you slice it, he's part of the lost gen. He's towards the end of the lost gen, but he's not even in the final year. He's the year before. And we'll do that in a little bit. First, let's talk about disgraced. This is from George Belshaw at the Metro.uk. Disgraced Justin Gimelstob steps down from the ATP board. Gimelstob's controversial spell as a player's representative on the ATP board has been brought to an abrupt end after he resigned from his role. Gimelstob was sentenced to 3 years probation, 60 hours community service, after also anger management. They didn't mention it here. After assault, I think a year of anger management. I mean, that's worse than what they made John McEnroe do. After assaulting venture capitalist Randall Kaplan the capitalist, an attack alleged to have also caused his wife Madison to miscarry. Now that is when I pretty much knew the court of opinion was definitely going to crush Justin Gimelstob no matter what. So it was a big win for Gimelstob in some ways because it could have been a felony, and they dropped it to a misdemeanor. And I think that's why Gimelstob thought he had a chance to stick around. But part of the testimony was the wife of Kaplan, the venture capitalist, was pregnant at the time, and they said the attack, because it was in front of her and her child on Halloween. Remember, Justin Gimelstob is dressed like a fighter pilot from Top Gun, which I believe is a movie about airplanes, something like that. I've never heard of it. So he's attacking him. He's beating the heck out of him, saying, "I will kill you," is what he was quoted as saying. And in the testimony, it said, was that her name, Madison? Yeah, the wife, Madison, went on to have a miscarriage. And they said it was the stress of seeing this event unfold before her very eyes that led to the miscarriage. I mean, that sounds horrible. The Tennis Podcast, they did a podcast recently before this news, a couple days ago, saying that Gimelstob's got to go. And, they have a lot of good reasons to not like Gimelstob, and I agree with a lot of it. But I also sense that they really just don't like Gimelstob, and I think there's more to it than just this assault thing. There's more to this assault thing than just that. There's going to be a civil case after this, and more information is going to come out. Gimelstob is required by the judge, actually ordered him to pipe down. If he starts going around saying, "I'm innocent, I didn't really assault the guy," she's going to revoke this sentence, and maybe we'll be talking felony again. I don't know if you can actually do that, but it sounds, whatever it is, she threatened this sweet deal that he got where it's probation and no jail time, nothing like that. He's not a felon. He's just a misdemeanor. She basically said that's all going to go away if you don't shut your mouth and go of what we've said here. But Gimelstob, even during the court case, Kaplan was saying, I might not be here today if someone didn't stop Gimelstob or something to that effect. And Gimelstob said, "No, that's not true. That's not how it happened." And judge said, "Pipe down, Gimelstob and burglars. Be quiet." We've heard a lot of responses about this stuff. We've also heard, like on the Tennis Podcast, they're saying we didn't hear enough. We didn't hear enough people say, get rid of Gimelstob. Truth is, Gimelstob still has a lot of friends, a lot of people in powerful places. People like players like Djokovic. It's reported that Novak Djokovic is pretty friendly to the Gimelstob side of this. A lot of these players, they like Gimelstob because they feel like he did a really good job representing them. And I think it's very interesting hearing this stuff on the Tennis Podcast. And, I think they've made it really political because, we've heard them talk about things like they want a players' union. A lot of them think it's a good idea. Wertheim definitely likes the players' union. And it sounded like Gimelstob was, Djokovic backs him, even Kevin Anderson. It sounds like Gimelstob was the guy who was really fighting for something like that. Maybe not necessarily a union, but definitely fighting for the things that a union would have got the players. And I don't think they wanted him to go, but obviously this just looks so bad. He needed to go. I'll read some of his statement. It appears that he's almost addressing some of these people who are so angry, like the tennis podcast folks. Gimelstob said, I don't have the whole thing here. I cut a lot of it out because it's really long. I don't want to bore you to death. But he said, I want to acknowledge and thank my critics, Gimelstob said in his statement. I appreciate that in choosing this profession, whether on the court, in the television booth, or in the boardroom, critique and scrutiny come with the platform you are given. I respect your profession, opinions, and appreciate your desire to hold everyone accountable to a standard that matches the access and opportunity we are given as stewards of the sport. In this next line, we see that Gimelstob thinks he has a chance to come back in the future. Don't know if that's going to happen. I hope that I have the opportunity in the future to contribute to the sport that I love and believe I can be an asset to once again. I also appreciate the opportunity needs to be earned. I am committed to working on myself, dealing with the challenges of my personal life, better equipping myself with the tools to handle the pain of losing my father, ongoing litigation for equal custody, the most important thing in my life, my son. Darren Cahill said, I can't remember if he actually said Gimelstob should go. I think he said Gimelstob should probably go. But he said there's good in Gimelstob, and he knows him, and he's seen it. A lot of these people, Tennis Channel people, Wertheim even, John Wertheim, he's at Tennis Channel too, Sports Illustrated also. A lot of them say, Gimelstob is really bad. This is a really bad look for tennis. I agree. It's kind of a distraction to have a guy like that in such a powerful position. And, he was going to run for president. He was going to be the next ATP president, a lot of people were saying. So, he needed to step down. And a lot of these people say, there's a lot of good stuff about Gimelstob and that John Isner approach, although he hasn't said anything yet that I've seen, is, Gimelstob is going through a really tough time in his life. He's going through this divorce and this custody battle for the right to have custody over his child. He just lost his father. Supposedly, according to Gimelstob, Mr. Kaplan, the venture capitalist Kaplan, had been saying some negative stuff about his dad. So there's clearly more to this whole thing. We'll probably find out more when this civil suit happens. But for now, Gimelstob is out. I think that's the best thing. That's what needed to happen. And I think Gimelstob, I'll play a clip for you. So Catherine Whitaker over at the Tennis Podcast, she hates Gimelstob, and I think it has a lot to do with stuff Gimelstob said, and is pretty bad. You can look it up. I'm not going to get into it, but about 11 years ago, I think 2008, Gimelstob was on some morning radio show in the U.S., and he said some bad stuff about Anna Kournikova. Who else? One of my favorites back then, Tatiana Golovin. I remember in 2008 being kind of mesmerized by her. She's quite a beautiful tennis player. He said some curious things about her and some other young hotties on the tour at the time. He had some not very nice words to describe them with. He said one thing about his brother and what he'd hope his brother could do to Anna Kournikova, which was kind of sick and twisted sounding. So clearly the folks at Tennis Podcast, they really hate that. But I don't think that's really why they hate Justin Gimelstob so much, and I'll get into that in just a moment. First, take a listen to some of what Catherine Whitaker at Tennis Podcast had to say.
Remove him, and you can reset the parameters, and you therefore don't need him anymore. And it's and I think the whole of men's tennis has a bit of a stench of toxic masculinity about it. These little issues don't exist in a vacuum. The article that Charlie Eccleshare wrote about the lack of male players who've come out as gay on the men's tour. The fact that the equal prize money debate is raging again in 2019 on the men's tour. There is a stench of toxic masculinity.
And there you go. That is what it is all about, I think. Gimelstob, and this is why Djokovic, I think. Again, we can't be 100% sure about what these guys think behind closed doors, but I've seen enough. I've pieced enough of the story together, all the quotes, all stuff. Even the interview on Tennis Podcast with Janko Tipsarevic. Tipsarevic made the case that, hey, the women don't bring in as much money as the men do. There is a case to be made there. Now, I think there are periods of time where the women have probably outsold the men in the ticket prices. I think right now, it's not even about men or women. It's really just Roger Federer, Rafa Nadal, Djokovic, and Serena. They outsell everyone. There's plenty of matches we see on tennis TV, on Tennis Channel, where the women are playing to an empty stadium, the men in early rounds, or the lesser-known men in later rounds, playing to empty stadium. I will say there was a good crowd there for Sasha Zverev, although he's in Germany, so it's a hometown hero kind of deal. But I am pretty sure the players who think we shouldn't have to split so much money with the women just to keep up the equal pay thing were really into Justin Gimelstob. They felt like he was the guy who was going to fight to make sure that happened. Now, one of the things that Gimelstob says here is, last night, while processing all of this, I fortunately was able to spend time with someone I respect greatly. He doesn't name him, but it's pretty obvious it's Novak Djokovic. Because later in the article, it says how he traveled all the way, he flew all the way to Spain to inform Djokovic of his decision, a close ally, says George Belshaw here at the Metro UK. So here's what he says. Last night, while processing all this, I fortunately was able to spend time with someone I respect greatly. He comforted me with the belief that from periods of pain and suffering arise a great opportunity for personal growth. We reflected on failure and how failure is not something to fear, but rather something to embrace, and from which to learn, specifically the theory of falling forward. Doesn't it sound like Pepe the Love Guru kind of stuff here? Which is, of course, if you don't know, Djokovic's personal advisor. He was spiritual advisor, something like that. I sincerely hope to be able to do exactly that, failing forwards, learn from my mistakes, become the best version of myself, not just for me, but for, most importantly, my son. Gimelstob later said, I wanted to look Novak in the eye, and the two most important things I wanted to say were first, thank you, and second, I love you. No, second, to apologize, is what he said. Apologize. Gimelstob's position was becoming increasingly untenable amid calls for his head from high-profile figures in the sport. High-profile figures like Andy Murray and Amelie Mauresmo. So, here's what I'm talking about. This is from in Barcelona. Rafa Nadal, Metro UK, not from George Belshaw, from Metro Sport Reporter. How much you want to bet it was George Belshaw, and he didn't want his name on this thing because of the stuff, because of the content of this article. Take a listen. Nadal hits back at Victoria Azarenka and defends gender equality in tennis. Why does she want us to play best of three? Asks Nadal. So Azarenka had said something like the men should play best of three. Then there's no excuse. Catherine Whitaker, some of the tennis podcast people. I don't know if David Laws is gung-ho on this one, but Catherine Whitaker definitely one of those people out there who thinks we need men playing best of three at the majors. So there's no excuses. There's no argument anymore. And to me, the best of five versus best of three wasn't really the main argument for why the men should even have a case to earn more. The only case that makes sense to me is which tour is making more money. If people are paying to see the women should get paid more. That's what I think. Unfortunately for them, it tends to be the men who make most of the revenue in tennis as it stands now. That could change. Rafa Djokovic retire, they might not be the big stars. I think it's good that we have equal pay at the majors because they've teamed up both sports. The majors are so big by themselves that no matter who's more popular one year, maybe Serena has a great run one year, and that's what's drawing all the attention. Maybe it's Federer's farewell final Wimbledon. Who knows? As we go on into the future, equal pay at the majors, equal pay at the biggest tournaments. That makes total sense to me because they've joined forces and they sell it as one package product. Men and women's tennis at the highest caliber, at the best places to play in the world. Now, if we talk about every little tournament and every little corner around the world, these are smaller businesses, smaller tournaments. They're struggling to survive. They're not making as much money. I don't think you need to do player unions. I don't think you need to force them to pay the same. Look, they can pay what they can pay. See if those tournaments can survive, if they can attract big names. But listen to what Rafa says here. Why does she want us to play best of three? We're happy playing best of five, says the Spaniard. I'm not going to do my Spanish voice, my Rafa voice, because this is serious. It doesn't matter the prize money, says Rafa, or equal prize money or not. That's your debate. It's not our debate. It's interesting that you were always debating on equal prize money in tennis when we are probably the only sport in the world where we are almost equal prize money in most of the events. So I don't know why you debate about why don't you debate about football, basketball, all the other important sports that women are miles away from men. Miles. Talk about they're galaxies away. You always debate here in our sport, tennis, when we support more the women than any sport in the world, el mundo. So I'm a little bit tired thinking about we are against the girls. No, not at all. I don't think Catherine Whitaker would like that Rafa said the girls. Another thing is, who sells more, says Rafa. And this is the only argument to me. Who cares? The men play best of five, the women play best of three. You know, I've been reading Bud Collins' History of Tennis book, and if you go back to like 1900 or 1910 or 100 freaking years ago plus, the women wanted to keep playing best of five. They had no problem. They used to play best of five. For whatever reason, they switched to the best of three, and the women were like, okay, we'll do best of three, but we're having fun playing best of five. We don't care. Not a big thing to me. But this is it here. Another thing is who sells more, who sells less. That is another debate. It's not about men or women, it's about persons, and that's all. We are the same. Somebody deserves more, and the other one deserves less. If you were in the same company as another man, talking about not tennis, your job, my job, whoever's job, whatever. If I'm doing better in my job than the other man, I have to win more than the other. It doesn't matter if it's a girl or a man, and I'm a little bit tired about this debate all of the time. God bless him, Rafa Nadal. I think he's absolutely right, and the thing is, like Rafa pointed out, look at other sports. I mean, it's not even a thing. There's nothing like women's tennis around the world for female sports. Comment below if you're an expert on this and you know more than me, but I don't know of any sport where women make anywhere near the kind of money they make from tennis. And it's not like I'm trying to say, hey, they get their pat on the back. You earned enough. You can stop now, women. Please go forwards and make even more money. Keep pursuing your passions. And in every sport, female athletes out there, we respect what you're doing. But Rafa has a very strong point. If you want to talk about gender, wage gaps, inequality, and pay, tennis is the last place to go because it's way worse in other places. And they don't try to put the leagues together in other places because I think, there's just, for whatever reason, women's tennis has been the most attractive women's sport in all of history. It's been like that for a very long time, and I think that says more about the sport of tennis. It's just a great sport. It is a superior sport, in my opinion. The greatest sport. Anyways, comment below what you think about that. I'm sure some people will probably be upset with me. I hope nobody takes me the wrong way on this, and I hope I didn't equivocate too much. But I will say I'm pretty close, my position, somewhere pretty close to what Rafa is saying there. Tennis is doing a great job. They have equal pay at all the important tournaments that matter. Tennis should be celebrated, and it should be seen as an example of what's possible in sport when it comes to men and women and their earning power. Let's move on. All right, what do we got left? You know what? It's getting late. I think we're just going to... No, let's not skip anything. We got a few more things left. One, Muller on Djokovic. Let's just read this out really quick. Gilles Muller, I'm really enjoying his commentary on Tennis TV, by the way. I thought the way that Djokovic was playing at the beginning of the year, he would maybe have another year where he'd dominate. But then I saw him struggling at Indian Wells in Miami. He didn't look positive to me on court. Didn't have positive energy or a positive attitude. Reminds me of a couple of years back. We had the same thing. He won the French Open in 2016. After that, he's always in a bad mood. Not happy on the court. Seems like the same way at Indian Wells in Miami. So it depends on how he is. If he has a couple more years like last year, I think he's one that is going to break the record, meaning Federer's 20 slams. But there is a long way to go. Absolutely a long way to go. What else do we got? Lendl. Put it on the screen. Why is he not traveling with Sasha? A lot of people thought it's because he's ready to jump ship. He has a horrible allergy to bee pollen. He'll be there in time for the French Open. Thank God. Lendl hasn't abandoned yet. And just in time, did I say team? Sasha Zverev is looking better than ever. We will wrap up with a hilarious Fonini headline. First, Dominic Thiem, lost gen or next gen? So put this on the screen. I spent hours working on this. So one's life is somewhere around 70-something years, average global life expectancy, something like that, 70-something years. And when we look at the generations, take a look at this from, I believe it's from NPR, where I got these numbers. So you got the GI generation, the greatest generation. The heroes of World War II are part of this generation. They go from 1900 to 1925, somewhere around there. The silent generation is next, 1925 to 1942. They were too young to be in World War II, and they were too old to be part of all the crazy hippie stuff in the 60s. Then you got the baby boomers who are all about it. They're born from 1943 to 1964. Then you got the Gen Xers. They're the worst. 1965, 1979, and they're the smallest. Millennials, that's me, Federer, Rafa. Every tennis player you watch on TV is a millennial. 1980 to 2000. And then you've got what people don't even know what to call it now, 2000 onwards. I generation is the one I like the best because when you were born, well, if you're born in 2000, there wasn't an iPhone yet, but by the time you knew anything about anything, there was an iPhone somewhere. So they're the I generation. Smartphones change the way we live our lives. and the I generation, like the Felix Auger-Aliassime. He is born in 2000. He's the only player on my list of I generation. Anyways, take a look. Got players like Rosewall, 30 to 34. Oh, really quick. So why did I make these gaps 5 years? And some of you are going to say, Matt, 30 to 34, that's only 4 years. Count it, baby. 1930, 1931, 1932, 1933, 1934. That's 5 years. I made it 5 years because I'll put it on the screen. If you Google search the average career of a tennis player, it's about 16 point something years. That's the average lifespan of a tennis player, as in how long he plays professionally, not how long he lives. Tennis lifespan, career lifespan. So if these generations are somewhere close to 20, 25 years, and the average person lives 70-something years, a generation is about a third of a lifespan. So if the average tennis lifespan, career lifespan, is about 16 years, 5 years is pretty close to a third. That's how I did the math. So we go 30, 34, guys like Rosewall, Petrangeli, you'll see his name on a court pretty soon. 35 to 39, Rod Laver, Roy Emerson, Santana, Spaniard, Manuel Santana, Fred Stolle. I've met 3 of those guys, proud to say. Then you go to 39, 44. These are the first baby boomers. Ash, Tom Ocker, John Newcomb, great guy. 45, 49, Rochi, who Federer had as a coach. I don't think anyone had a coach going back so many tennis generations. Ilie Nastase, Stan Smith, Manuel Orantes. 50 to 54, Connors, Tanner, Eddie Dibbs, Roscoe Tanner, Gilbert Gottfried. No, sorry, it's not Gilbert Gottfried. Brian Gottfried, Dick Stockton, Guillermo Villas, Jose Higueras, Vitas Gerulaitis, Brian Teacher, McEnroe. Some of these guys I put the number of their majors won by them. Some of them I probably forgot. McEnroe, 55, 59, Bjorn Borg, Johan Kriek. Go to 60, 64, Lindell, Wielander, Arias. I only put him there because he's a commentator. Andres Gomez with 1 major. Yannick Noah, 1 major. Brad Gilbert, no majors, but everyone knows who BG is. Then finally, we get to some Gen Xers. First round of Gen Xers, Boris Becker, Stefan Edberg, Aaron Krickstein, Thomas Muster, Steich, however you say his name, Pat Cash, 70 to 74. Now, this is where we start to think. Roger has wins over guys from a lot of these generations. So Courier, born in 1970. So is Agassi, Sampras, 71. Krajicek, Ivanisevic, Kafelnikov, Chang, Rafter, Sergei Bruguera. Those guys are the 70 to 74 gen. Then you go 75, 79. This is kind of the lost gen of their time. Guga, Moya, Costa, Gaudio, Rios. Recognize those guys? Federer's played all of them. He's played pretty much all the guys in the generation before that. Then finally we get to the Federer generation. I don't know what else to call it. These are guys like, and hear these names. When I read these names, how many of these guys don't play anymore? Haven't played for a long time. And how many of them have played as long as Federer pretty much? Although he's the oldest on here. By the way, the last person from any generation before the Fed generation, this is, we would call it the lost generation, but they have 6 majors. But still, it's nothing like the 34 majors from the Courier, Sampras, Agassi generation. I think, I don't think I totaled out the majors before that. But, 12 majors between Boris Becker and Edberg in that 65, 69 generation alone. Anyways, so take a listen to some of these names. Federer with 20. Kohlschreiber, still playing. Ferrer, still playing, but not for long. Verdasco, still playing. Roddick, long gone. Hewitt, long gone. Gilles Simon, still playing. Juan Carlos Ferrero. He's already been a coach and fired as a coach, or quit on Zverev, whatever happened there. Not playing for a long time. Guillermo Coria. Many of you watching Coffee Break Tennis don't even know who that guy is. Marat Safin, been gone for a while. So is his sister, younger sister. She's gone for a while. David Nalbandian. He's been gone forever. Davydenko. Some of you don't remember Nicholas Davydenko. Davydenko was freaking everywhere. He was in like every major match. He was one of those guys that would always get there and couldn't beat the top players, although he managed to beat Rafa quite a bit. Fernando Gonzalez. Tommy Robredo. Marty Fish, the fish stick. Feli Lopez, who's done. Tipsarevic, trying to come back, mostly been gone. Michael Lodra, remember that guy? He's been gone forever, born 1980. Robin Soderling, gone a long time. And most of these guys who are still around, they're born after Federer, a year, 2 years, 3 years in Robin Soderling's case. 26 majors from that generation. So just about the same as the generation before if you take Federer out of it. Some of you might be saying, look, Matt, it's a weak generation. It's a weak generation. Look, we will say that. The generation before Roger, not the strongest. 2 generations before Roger, very strong, but on their way out. The generation Federer's from, there's a lot of good players in there, but okay. The next generation, 40 majors total between Nadal and Djokovic, Murray, Stan, Delpo, Nishikori, Nishikishi, Jo-Wilfried Tsonga, Cilic, Isner, Birdman, Monfils, Anderson, Bautista Agut, Query, Benoit Paire. Benoit Paire is kind of an in-betweener. He's at the pretty late in 89. Now, for some real in-betweeners. Nishikori, born December 29th, 1989. Stevie Johnson, December 24th, 1989. These guys are born just a few days later. They're born in 1990, and they're the beginning of the lost gen. They just barely make it into, we said the GI generation is the great generation, the guys, the heroes of World War II, the women that helped work in the factories back home to get the stuff that those guys needed over across the ocean for World War II. I might want to call the Nadal-Djokovic generation the great generation. Why are they so great? Because they won so freaking much. They helped Roger shut out the lost gen. And they had to deal with Roger and some pretty good champions. Roddick was able to challenge those guys for some time. David Ferrer was always there. And not much. I mean, Nalbandian made his mark. He just couldn't keep it going. You could say Nalbandian is a guy who would have won majors, would have been a great player. So I don't want to say there's something to the weak argument with this, the weak era argument, because Federer was able to beat Nalbandian when it mattered. Same with Marat Safin. Other than that one Australian Open, was that 2005, 2006, 2005. So we get to 90-94. Raonic, Dimitrov, Dominic Thiem. What started this all? Born September 93. Fairly late 93, but this generation goes 90-94. Even if we shifted everything over a year, I think he would still be in it. Either way you go. You cut it off at 93, he's still there, baby. You cut it off at 95, he's way inside. Popsicle, 1990. Let's keep looking so you can fully, whenever we talk about the lost gem, we just say like Dimitrov, Raonic, Nishikori. He's kind of in between. Listen to all these players from the lost gen. How many majors they got? 0. None of these generation lists have 0 majors. Raonic, Dimitrov, Thiem, Popsicle, Basilashvili, Bouchard. I just threw her in there to give you an idea. Jack Sock, Ryan Harrison, Jan Leonard Strafisruf, David Goffin, Cecchinato, Krajinovic, Pablo Correa, Busta! And some more in-betweeners. Kyrgios, Kyle Edmund. Edmund, January 95. Kyrgios, April 95. The next generation starts 1995. Some true in-betweeners there. So technically, Kyrgios is next gen. Kyle Edmund, next gen. But they're very close to the lost gen. There's always going to be some in-betweeners the way this thing goes down. So we got Sasha Zverev, Tsitsipas, 98. He's at the end. Aliassime is his own gen. If you shift it to 99 is the cutoff and the start of the I-gen, what do we even call it in tennis? I mean, Zverev, Tsitsipas, Shapo, Chorch, Medvedev, Hurkacz, Rhymes of Latch, Francis Tiafoe, Nick Kyrgios, Mr. Rubles, Edmund, Fritzy Boy, Kakinak, all those guys are part of the lost gen. I mean, the next gen. That's you see the years that they're born there. Only person I could think of who's winning anything, Felix Auger-Aliassime, part of the next gen, whatever you want to call it. All right, hit the music. We're getting out of here. Sorry for the super long, drawn-out show, but I hope you had fun. I enjoyed it. Sorry it took us so long to get the show out. I had a lot going on this week, but I'm feeling well. I think I'll be good to go to get ready for Madrid. Last thing, put it on the screen. Last time we talked about Fabio Fognini, there was news about him saying he makes love to his wife Flavia Panetta 11 times a week. Now we have this hilarious Fognini headline that reads, Flavia says, the wife of Fabio Fognini is like a crazy horse. 11 times a week, he must be a freaking crazy horse. See ya!